us decipher all the issues concerning health and wellness. Medical practitioner from the University of Ghana Medical Center, Dr. Christiana Akpan is with us. She's from UGMC. We're talking diabetes today. That is a discussion that we'll be having on Z Talk. No, that's the extended version. Health and wellness, rather. Z101.9 FM. Good morning, Dr. Christiana Akpan.
Good morning.
It's nice.
Jeffrey.
Yeri? It's nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you too.
I hope you're happy to be here.
Oh, definitely.
You're relaxed.
Yes, I am.
Diabetes. What is it and why is it a big deal?
Okay, diabetes is a condition where you have very high levels of sugar in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important because, now we are talking about non-communicable diseases, and this is the major cause of disease in the world currently, globally, and also in Ghana. We have diabetes and hypertension, the top causes of non-communicable diseases, causing a lot of disease burden. So this is why we really need to talk about it.
We're told there are different types.
Oh yeah, we have majorly we have the type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Initially, we classified the juvenile as different, but now it's under type 1, which is when you have reduced. In fact, the pancreas, which is the organ in the body responsible for producing insulin, the hormone that should put the sugars into the cells, and we have that the pancreas is unable to produce the insulin, and that's what we have in type 1. But in type 2 diabetes, which is initially was called the adult onset, but now it's just type 2 because you even have very young people coming down with the disease. So in this type, is one of two things. The pancreas is not producing enough insulin to cater for the body's sugars, or the cells are not responding well to the insulin that is being produced. So that's what you have in type 2 diabetes.
Okay, so you're saying that there used to be what they call gestational?
Juvenile. That's
and now
in
it is
young
part
people,
of type
but
1.
it's type 1, yes.
Okay, all right. So broadly, we have just 2 types now.
Yes.
Interesting.
Well, we still have gestational diabetes, which is what you find in pregnant women. We have pre-diabetes as well. But yes, when you're talking about real diabetes, it's mainly type 1 and 2.
Type 1 and type 2.
Yes.
Okay. What are the common symptoms and signs of diabetes?
Okay, so diabetes, especially type 2, which is the most common type, can start very insidiously. Initially the symptoms can be so mild that if you do not actually go for a screening program, it might not be picked up. But the symptoms majorly for diabetes are you feel very thirsty, we call it polydipsia, or you're urinating a lot, we call it polyuria, or you are eating a lot, we call it polyphagia, and unintentional weight loss, when you're just losing weight. These are the 4 major symptoms of diabetes.
Wow.
Some other symptoms like feeling weak, having recurrent boils are all part of the symptoms that we can get.
And how do you do this diagnosis? I mean, someone comes, how would you test to see if the person has diabetes?
Okay, so the test for diabetes majorly is the fasting blood sugar. All right. So when a client comes and we need to do the test, we typically go for the fasting blood sugar, and we diagnose diabetes if you have a fasting blood sugar that is greater than 7.1 millimoles, 7.1 or higher millimoles per liter, and you have symptoms, which I already spoke about, the symptoms of diabetes. That means if we check your fasting blood sugar and you have higher than this value and you also have symptoms, the diagnosis is made. But if there are no symptoms, then we need at least 2 values that are high to make the diagnosis.
Okay.
Random blood sugar too, if it's greater than 11.1 millimoles. That means even if you have eaten, your sugar shouldn't be higher than that. So if it's higher than that, then it's diabetes.
Amazing. And when you say you need 2 because the person hasn't got a symptom. So you need to do a double, and then all double must give you high figures before you're totally convinced.
Exactly.
Does that mean that there could be just one hike in sugar level, and that is not necessarily diabetes?
Well, sometimes somebody is acutely unwell. The stress with being unwell can make your blood sugars go up. But beyond just having the two, like I said, we also go for a confirmatory test. We have something that is called oral glucose tolerance test, which is used to confirm. And when you come for that test, they give you some high-loaded sugar drink to take, and then your sugar is checked at intervals after that. That really confirms if indeed you're able to, put your sugars into your cells like you're supposed to.
Wow. With this whole thing that we keep hearing, insulin. What is insulin, and what is the role of insulin in all this discussion?
Okay, so like I said, the pancreas, which is an organ in the body, is responsible for producing the beta cells of the gland, is responsible for producing insulin. Now, insulin, when you eat, these cells are supposed to produce the insulin, which is supposed to be released into the blood. And this helps the sugars that you have now eaten to be sent into the cells to reduce the level in the blood. So there's supposed to be a steady state in the blood, which caters for your brain, because, all your body organs need it. So, yes, this is essentially what insulin does. But in the case where insulin is reduced, or the cells, the receptors on the cells are not responding well to the insulin that you have in the body, then you have high sugars. So insulin is the hormone which is responsible for keeping a normal sugar level in the body. Okay.
So if there is diabetes, then there's a problem with insulin doing its work.
Exactly.
Either it is not being produced enough, or it is produced enough but it's unable to
work as it should. Yes.
Now we understand. It's a lesson. 30 minutes past the hour of 9, and the final hour of the show. We have Dr. Christiana Akpan here from the UGMC, and we're having a discussion on diabetes. Diabetes mellitus, is that a full name?
Diabetes mellitus.
Mellitus. Diabetes mellitus. That's the name. Okay, nice. So what are the different treatment options for diabetes in terms of medications? And then we come to our big one, which here at Z is critical. That's lifestyle. We're the lifestyle, leisure, and business radio. So first, let's start with medications, then we come to lifestyle.
Okay. Well, you are putting me in a box because in our practice we like to start with lifestyle.
Okay, please do. Feel free.
Even with when the diagnosis is first made, lifestyle is the first thing. All right. Because it is so important. We encourage that if you are overweight, reducing your weight, maintaining a healthy weight is very essential in the management, because this has proven to bring down your sugar levels. In people who are pre-diabetic, lifestyle alone is used in management to put them back into euglycemia. When I mean euglycemia, I'm talking about normal sugar levels. So, diet. Management of diabetes is multidisciplinary, and one of the key players in this team is a dietitian. So, if a diagnosis of prediabetes is made, or the early diabetes, it is, in fact, in all diabetes, but primarily in these ones, they start the management and we reassess to see if it worked. If it didn't, then we can consider medications. So diet. The dietitian can give, a broad, talks to the patient, finds out what they are doing wrong and what can be corrected. They, get their diet list, what they typically eat, what they shouldn't. So we know that in diabetes, the simple sugars, are culprits, because once you take them in, they just shoot up your blood sugars. So we want you to eat more complex sugar, carbohydrates, or more complex foods. That the breakdown is, gradual, so that the release of sugar into your system is gradual, and it doesn't give us that very high peak of blood sugar. So diets, we want a healthy plate, which includes your vegetables, your proteins, carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates in good proportion. Now, it's a misconception that if you are diabetic, you shouldn't eat any carbohydrates, because we know that all the foods you are eating would eventually be broken down to sugar. So the dietitian, if you are diabetic and you're listening this morning and you've not seen a dietitian before, please make an appointment today, because it's essential for you to see them and they discuss with you how you should eat. That's one. And then exercise. Okay. So exercise really is important, because if you exercise, it also helps your cells to be more sensitive to insulin.
Okay.
So if you are producing insulin and your cells are not sensitive, just exercising alone will make your cells more sensitive, and then you get your sugars becoming more euglycemic. So exercise is also very important. And like I said when I started, maintaining a healthy weight. Okay, we've seen that people who are obese are more prone to diabetes than others. So if you reduce your weight, it also helps significantly. People who smoke are advised to stop, because we know that diabetes affects the arteries. It causes injuries to the blood vessels. So those who smoke further worsen the injury caused by diabetes.
What kind of smoke?
Smoking anything, cigarettes, even if you are a secondary smoker, you're around where people are always smoking. Anything, as long as you're inhaling something, yes. Even shisha is smoking,
Okay.
Yes. So it's advised that you stop smoking, reduce alcohol significantly. So just maintaining a healthy lifestyle, reducing, your cholesterol. So that's also what we use in the lifestyle modification. All the fatty foods, boil them instead of, frying, or, those kind of things should be considered in your lifestyle management.
What are examples of complex carbohydrates?
Okay, so like we say, it's better to take the brown rice instead of the, plain white rice.
Okay.
So those are the examples. Things like drinking the Coke, the Fantas, those are just sugars that once you take them in, it's spiking your, yes. So you can make your juice by yourself instead of having to drink, or better still drink water.
Better still just drink water, right? Okay, so at what part in this journey does medication come in?
Yes, so medication is key. Depends on the stage. Like I said, if it's the first, you've just been diagnosed with diabetes and your levels are not too high, we can use lifestyle alone and see if we'll achieve cure. Management. But if you're having very high sugars, then we start lifestyle alongside medications.
Okay.
So yes, we have a different classes as we discover new ways by which diabetes comes about. We develop medications along those lines. So yes, we have a long list of anti-diabetic medications, which it's better that you come to the hospital.
Exactly.
Yes, and then the doctor now decides based on guidelines which one is best for you. But yes, you can be started on one medication. You can be started on up to 3 medications, depending on how high your sugar levels are, because the aim is to try and bring them down as soon as possible to prevent organ damage.
Some have said that the problem with medication is that then you become addicted, and that without it, then if you stop it, and you become like you have to live on those things till you die.
Well, I always tell my clients that the problem is misunderstanding. like I started by explaining how diabetes comes about, you can understand that this is a chronic condition. This is not something like malaria that you take medications for 3 days and you're fine. This is something that you have to be on, because like I said, the problem is that a whole gland is not producing enough insulin. And some of the medications we give act like milking, pressing, like you're drinking sachet water and you're pressing the water to come out. You get to a point where you press and there's no water left in the bag. You understand? So it's not like the medications is to cure the condition. We are managing it. And as long as the cause is still there, the medications are not addictive. We are using it to manage it. So the problem is we don't understand the cause. So the cause is that a gland is not functioning well, and we are trying to help the gland, supplement the gland. We are not replacing the gland with the medications we are giving. So this is the reason why you have to be on the medication for a very long time, even lifelong.
For the rest of your life?
Yes.
Interesting. How can diabetes be? Can it be prevented? Can someone whose family has a history of diabetes live in such a way that the person won't get, or it will be delayed, or what?
Oh, definitely. So if you know that you have family history of diabetes, then you know that you need to start watching very early in life. So again, the pancreas produces insulin. If you start to overuse the gland from when you were very young, you always eat the sugary things, you always have, the very big bowl of food, and you do not have discipline or control as to how much you eat. You live a sedentary lifestyle, you don't exercise, you move from your car to your office, and you get to your office, you sit down, you don't have time to walk around. This is recipe for disaster. You understand? You maintain an unhealthy weight. So if you know that you have family history of diabetes and you want to prevent it, you start by watching what you eat. Even before a diagnosis is made, you start by exercising. You start by doing all the things that I spoke about in lifestyle modification. Because if you do those things, you'll be able to maintain a healthy weight. You'll be able to reduce the burden on your pancreas by having to produce so much insulin all the time. So you're just, resting, pampering the organ and not overusing or overworking it. So it doesn't get tired on time. So that is basically how you delay diabetes onset.
Wow. Lifestyle modification.
Yeah.
And this is a Lifestyle, Leisure and Business Radio, your LLB Radio Z101.9 FM. And that's what Dr. Christiana Akpan from the UGMC is advising us to do. Do you appreciate, Doc, the challenges some have based on the work they do? And how would you advise such people? The guy, you say he drives in an air-conditioned car and gets to his office.
Well, I didn't mention
No. I'm adding that one.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So he drives to an air-conditioned car. He gets to his office. He enters his air-conditioned office. He has work to do. He's a branch manager in the bank. He's a head of something in some insurance company, some finance firm. Then he sits and he begins to work. His face is, inside his machine is working. This guy works till late, drives home. He comes to you and you want to advise him. What are some of the things you would tell this chap, to do to manage on the onset of diabetes in his life or whatever? What should because he won't walk to work. He will still drive. He will still sit. He would still have that. What would you say to such a person?
Okay. So sometimes we forget that before technology came, people were still living active lives. And the fact that technology has come should not make it seem like we cannot do, some level of activity. So some in the modern world, or not modern, in the Western world, where obesity has taken over their lives because they were experiencing all of these things that we are now enjoying. You see that people are using bicycles to get to work. Very rich, affluent people. It's not because they cannot afford to have cars. I've seen videos of people using treadmills in their office and their computer is sitting on it and they are walking as they are, doing the work. If you know that you have 24 hours in a day, and we recommend at least 30 minutes of active walking in a day, I don't think that 30 minutes is so much thing to sacrifice out of 24 hours. You can make time because we know that this thing, if you get the condition diabetes, and every stage there's a different level of prevention. If you get a disease and you get a complication from it, you will be unable to do the work which is so precious to you. So you should value your life enough to spare some time to implement these lifestyle modifications. I believe you can make that time. 30 minutes out of 24 hours. You can wake up very early by 5 o'clock, do your walking for 30 minutes. By 5:30, you go and prepare for work. That is something. Then you sit in your car and go and sit in your office, knowing that you have done the work before you are coming to do the other work, So I feel like you can still make out time, no matter how busy your schedule is, at least 5 times a week to do some form of physical activity.
Make time. Be conscious about it. Be intentional about it. And make time regardless of how busy you are, right? And if you don't, there are going to be problems. What are the potential complications of unmanaged diabetes?
Okay, so complications of diabetes are enormous. And like I mentioned during the course of this conversation, I spoke about the fact that diabetes affects the blood vessels. And we know that blood vessels go to every part of the body.
Okay.
So you can have complications. We classify it into micro and macrovascular complications. Now, the microvascular complications, diabetes is the leading cause of blindness worldwide. Okay. So it causes blindness. It can cause problems with the nerves, making you unable to have sensation in your feet. Your palms, you start to feel this tingling sensation, numbness, and which can eventually cause you to not feel anything. That is why it's important. Foot care is very important in diabetes, because when you start to get the numbness and lose sensation, you can be at risk of getting injuries that you might not even notice. All right. So, and we also have that it can affect the kidneys. In the West, the global report says the leading cause of kidney disease, kidney failure. But here in Ghana, it's second to hypertension. All right. You can also have, causing, cerebrovascular complications like stroke. We have the heart attacks from all this. So, yes, it can affect every we have a peripheral vascular disease, arterial disease causing, reducing blood flow to your legs, which can also be a problem. So yes, it can affect every part of the body.
Interesting. That in itself. So it means that diabetes then has an effect on other aspects. So it is not that that part of the body is where the problem started, but the problem started with diabetes and it affected that part of the body. That's quite interesting. We almost have passed the hour of 9, and as the conversation is still, in fact, it's 9:30. Conversation on diabetes is happening here on Z101.9 FM as part of our Tuesday Health and Wellness Tuesdays conversation. Dr. Christiana Akpan from the UGMC is here with us, and we're having some very thoughtful insight into this very illness called diabetes. we are announcing that in the next 10 minutes, which is like 20 minutes to the top of the hour, we'll be opening the phone lines for you to also join this conversation. 0544 321019 or 0303 956641. Those are the lines you can call. You can send a message on the WhatsApp line is 0544 321019. And you can also follow us on our social media platforms on X, on Instagram, on Facebook. The handle is at ZFMGH. At ZEDFMGH. And then on TikTok and on YouTube, the handle is at Z Multimedia. And the website is zmultimedia.com. And the lines will be open at 9:40 so that you can call in and join the conversation. Let's talk about monitoring blood sugar levels.
Okay.
How important is this in the whole discussion on diabetes?
Okay. So preventing complications from diabetes is basically keeping, for those who already have the disease, so this is what we call secondary prevention. It is to make sure you have normal sugar levels. And you cannot know unless you check, all right? You need to check to be sure that the medications we are giving you is getting good results. So when we start our patients on medications, we give them what we call a glucose chart to get us a glucose profile. So they need to check at certain times so that we are sure that the medications we are giving them is working. You cannot tell your level of blood sugar unless you check. And there are certain levels that we have seen from research that if we are able to achieve those target ranges, we will prevent complications. So now the aim is to treat to target so that we prevent complications that arise from this disease.
And how are these tests? I mean, individual at home, how is he going to test, or he has to go to the hospital to test?
No, we have the glucose monitors that can be self-applied.
Okay.
It's very easy to use. Maybe the first time the pharmacist can show you, or the health worker if you're in the hospital, and then you can easily administer it to yourself. Yes.
Interesting. Let's go into this very discussion. And I know it's early morning radio, but there's a doctor here, so some of the conversations might get a bit uncomfortable, but we still must talk about it. What is this thing about diabetes and sores? Diabetes and sores.
Sores. Oh, okay, like wounds.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. So, diabetes, we already said, causes high levels of sugar in the blood.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I already spoke about food numbness as
mm-hmm.
well. In a client who has gotten that complication of numbness, is unfortunately unable to feel the leg very well. So they might get injuries in the legs that they are not aware of because they are not feeling any sensation. Also, bacteria loves sugar. So we also know that the foot is in close proximity to the ground, which is full of bacteria. So when you get a wound which you are not even aware of, and your blood sugar is high at the same time, it's almost impossible for that wound to heal on its own, because bacteria is going to feast on that wound and make it get worse and worse and worse. And oftentimes the client is not even aware, which is important to do foot care. So we teach our patients to every day pick up the leg, inspect it, look at it, all right? So that you are not missing any wound. Wear very comfortable protective shoes, padded shoes that are raised from the floor so that you don't pick any nails without knowing. And then also look at it, like I said, every day. But if you notice any wound, present to the hospital as soon as possible.
Kofi from East Legon, can you please ask how they diagnose the key biomarkers? That question. I
already spoke about the fasting blood sugar, confirmation with oral glucose tolerance test. We also have a test called glycated hemoglobin, which can be used to diagnose, but it's still controversial whether indeed it should be used to diagnose, but we use it to monitor. We use it to monitor whether we are achieving the targets we've set for ourselves, and inform us how aggressive we should start treatment.
Oh, interesting. Let me also come into this discussion, the traditional bit of managing diabetes.
Okay.
As a doctor, have you had patients say, I'll go and use traditional medicine or herbs or something? What is that discussion like, and how do you handle them?
Okay, so I say that I am not. I am practicing orthodox medicine. I do not battle with people who prefer traditional herbal medicine. If it works, I'm okay. So if you want to use the herbal therapy, as long as it works for you, I do not stand in their way. Just that unfortunately some of them come back with complications that we have to manage. So I don't completely, ignore herbal medicine. Just that I do where I'm conversant with. I practice what I'm conversant with.
Yeah, you don't want to get into that space and argue with them and say it works, it doesn't work.
Yes.
Oh, our great grandfathers use these herbs and all that.
Yeah.
I get that, because I'm asking that because there are those who would say that orthodox medicine actually then made their case worse and all that. I mean, and so when you hear things like that, you I'm sure you have an understanding of it. We'll come to issues of myths and complications. A diabetic getting into a holiday season,
Okay.
what would you advise the person? The person is your client, or the person is listening to us. There's a party coming on. There's a long weekend like the one we had just recently. What would you tell the person?
You know your condition. You know that you have a challenge with managing your blood sugars. Unfortunately, the festive seasons is strived with, sugary foods, drinks, and a lot of merry eating. But you have to apply caution. You have to be moderate, because you don't metabolize your food like the others do. So you have to still be watchful. Yes, that's
You
my
have to
advice.
still be watchful. There's a second question. They're coming in hard and fast. Between insulin and blood glucose, which is a better marker for early detection?
I don't think I understand the question. Between insulin is not, we don't use insulin as a marker. We use the blood glucose to know whether you are having diabetes or not.
Okay. So
Yes.
the person's argument is insulin's work is actually to send, for want of a better word, send the blood glucose into the cells, right?
Yes.
We've established that from the beginning. So
So
I think
we do not test how much insulin you have in your blood. We use the blood glucose, which we can easily check as a proxy to know whether you are doing well with your insulin or not. Because like I said, sometimes because there's insulin there, but it's not working well. All right. Sometimes there's not enough insulin, but what we want to know is your sugars high or low or normal? Yes.
okay. So the marker is not the insulin, but what the insulin is supposed to do will give us an indication
Exactly.
of whether it is doing that
Exactly.
or it's not doing that. Okay, so let me announce the lines again: 0544321019 and 0303956641. And on Facebook, on Instagram, and on X, it's at ZFMGH. On TikTok and YouTube is at Z Multimedia. The website is zmultimedia.com. And it's a conversation on Tuesdays. And Tuesdays conversations are always about health and wellness. We have with us in the studio Dr. Christiana Akpan from UGMC, University of Ghana Medical Center. We're talking diabetes this morning. It is important. So bring your calls. Send us your messages as well. Call. We'll pick your line and we'll have a conversation with a good doctor as we continue. What are some of the myths and misconceptions about diabetes that you know? I also know some.
Okay.
So you debunk some and then we also go ahead.
Okay, so some of the myths are, the diabetes only happens in elderly people. We know that now that we have diabetes a lot in young people. Some people also feel like once you have been asked to take insulin, then that's the end of your life. People actually really dread insulin. And so that's another myth that is not true. Insulin is to help you. It's because you know that you need it. If you did not need it, we will not recommend it. So there's no harm. It's not the end. Rather, if you take it as you should, then we'll get lower sugar levels and we'll be better off preventing complications.
Okay, I think we have a call on the line. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Welcome to the show. Please, where are you calling from and your names?
I'm calling from Community 25. I'm Akwesi.
Okay, Akwesi from Community 25, Tema.
Please, I want to ask doctor, how do I know if my sugar is up or my sugar is low? How would I know if I don't go to the hospital? How would I know?
If you don't go to the hospital, you will know from some of the symptoms I mentioned. So if you notice that you're urinating a lot, you're feeling a lot more thirsty, you're eating a lot, but you're actually losing weight. These are some of the markers that we can use to tell that perhaps you should go and get a screen. But it's important that you get screened regularly because the early stages of it are actually very insidious and you would not know.
Okay. Thank you very much, doctor.
Thank you very much. From Tema, Community 25, KC, thank you so much for calling. So, yes, the conversation still continues right here. It's Health and Wellness Tuesdays. The diabetes question, the conversation is going on right here. What about the fact that it's for rich people? Have you come across that myth? I have my own myth, so I'm bringing some of them out.
Okay, maybe because the rich people are actually eating a lot of the refined sugars more, and they're
That's
actually their lifestyle is actually, we know that the people who have low means might not be into those simple sugars as much as the rich people. So maybe that is why.
Okay, but it is not true that it's a rich people's disease. Okay, 0544 32 1019. That's the line. 0544 32 1019. 0303 95 66 41. 0303 95 66 41. Those are the lines you can call and we'll talk to you. Yes, Doc, you were saying something.
So I wanted to say that when I was mentioning the complications of diabetes, I actually didn't mention the acute complications of diabetes. We have the fact that you can get actually hypoglycemic, all right? So if you take your medications and you forget to eat, you can actually get very low sugars, which for us is more life-threatening than even the high sugars.
Wow.
So if you are a diabetic and you've taken your medications, forgotten to eat, and you realize that you are sweating, you are feeling dizzy, and your heart is beating fast, you should actually look for any sugary drink and take it immediately and get your sugar checked. Go to the nearest hospital. Sometimes also people who forget to take their medications can have very high sugars to the point which can also be life-threatening. So please try to comply with our medication regime and take it as we advise.
Thank you very much. 0544 32 1019. 0544 32 1019. 0303 95 66 41. 0303 95 66 41. You can also send messages via social media and we'll be picking them on X, on Instagram, and on Facebook. The handle is at ZFMGH. ZEDFMGH. And then on TikTok and YouTube is at Z Multimedia. Those are the handles that you can touch us on. Obesity always leads to diabetes. Is that a myth or is that true?
It's not true. Not all patients who are obese have diabetes. So, it's a myth. It's just that there's a high tendency that if you're obese, you could get diabetes. But it's not an all situation.
Okay. The lines are still open. You can call. I hear there's a caller on the line. We'll try and get through to that caller as well, just so that we have a conversation. If you have a question for Dr. Christiana Akpan from UGMC on diabetes, please kindly call in and then ask her your question. She's ready to answer you. We have a caller on the line. Good morning, and please, where are you calling from?
Good morning, my name is Kofi and I'm calling from East Legon.
Okay, Kofi from East Legon, please, what's your question for Dr. Christiana?
Okay, so I just had a response to the question of the biomarkers they use for to diagnose diabetes, right? And she said they use um, um, glucose only as their marker, I think is factually incorrect. Now, why I'm saying so is insulin is the controller for the action of sugar or glucose. So you must know what insulin is doing to the action of sugar. And so if you ignore the fasting insulin, you cannot, and please let me repeat, you cannot, will not effectively diagnose or cure type 2 diabetes.
Okay, thank you so much,
so,
Kofi. Yes.
No, and so, yeah, I need to move on. So my next question is, if they ignore insulin and the person has got sugar problems, high sugar or whatever, do they also, I mean, doctors, do they also investigate the person's C-peptide? If the doctor can respond to my questions.
Thank you very much, Kofi from East Legon. He spoke. All right, so Doc will handle that.
Okay, so like I said, this is an educative show, and we are trying to reach our target audience, which is everybody. And I'm here to educate. This is not an academic or a research show. So what we use and what we test our clients is actually the glucose, the fasting glucose. We don't test for the fasting insulin. For the general populace, we test for the fasting glucose, and that tells us if there's high glucose, and that is used as a proxy to know whether we are having insulin or not.
Okay.
Because when we test the fasting glucose and it is high, it gives us an indication that perhaps the insulin is either low or the cells are not responding well to it. That is one. Your second question about the C-peptide. C-peptide is used to diagnose patients with type 1 diabetes. And that is not for type 2. And so that one is used for to actually have an idea whether we are dealing with type 1 or type 2. Yes. Okay.
All right. So I hope Kofi from East Legon, Doc has answered your question. Once again, the number is 054432 1019. 054432 1019 or 030395 6641 0303956641. That's the lines that you can call so that we'd have this conversation with Doc. Now we're tackling diabetes, the myths around it and all that. Eating too much sugar causes diabetes.
Eating too much simple sugar, it's still a way of burdening your pancreas and making it overwork. So if you do that regularly, you increase your risk of developing the condition.
Okay, so you do tea, you put plenty sugar, you stay. I mean, you are increasing your risk. Diabetes is contagious.
It is a non-contagious disease. Yes.
People with diabetes cannot eat sugar.
Everything is in moderation. So now the dietitians help. If the patient would rather not eat because there is no sugar in the food, then they help the patient to calculate how much sugar they can add and how much food they can still add if they have to take sugar. So if you have to take sugar, you probably have to reduce the quantity of the other thing you're eating it with. It's just so that you have a balanced meal.
Interesting. There is another one someone just sent to me. I think I can even answer that, but let me bring it to you. People with diabetes are dangerous drivers. Does it got to do with the eyesight thing?
Well, again, diabetic patients are advised to have their eye checked at least once a year. So, as I said, it's the leading cause of blindness. So if the patient has diabetes and they are not seeing well, they can be dangerous on the road. But yes, I cannot also say that
of course,
diabetic patients are
terrible drivers. Of course. So that's a good point. One thing leading to another and then to another. People with diabetes should avoid carbohydrates.
No, they have to eat it in good proportion in relation to their vegetables and their proteins. And the kind of carbohydrate they eat as well is important. That's why they need to see the dietitian.
Okay. That's an interesting one there. They need to see the dietitian. Someone just walked into the studio. Okay, so we have a few. Okay, there's a caller on the line. Let me pick that. Good morning, sir. Please, where are you calling from and your name?
Hey, I'm Evans. I'm calling from Medina.
Okay, Evans from Medina. Please, what's your question?
I know the Western medicine will indeed bring down your manhood. Do we have an alternative with African medicine?
Okay, you know Western medicine will bring down your manhood. So is there an alternative to that? Is that a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much from Medina, copy from Medina. Doc, manhood, very important. Is it going to bring down manhood?
So indeed, this is a valid reason why a lot of our patients do not comply to their medications. Unfortunately, I don't think they know that diabetes is actually a cause of erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
So some of these patients come with erectile dysfunction from the diabetes and think it's your medication that is causing it. I have some who will stop the medication, go for a year, and come back. The erectile dysfunction has not corrected itself after they've stopped the medications. But the diabetes is causing other problems, so they still come back. So please, with diabetes, our medications do not cause that. Rather, the condition in itself can result in that erectile dysfunction. So please adhere to our regimen. Do not stop taking your medication because of that.
He wants to know if there's an alternative. Let's tackle that part of the question.
The alternative is actually taking your medication, reducing your sugar levels, and that will, improve your condition rather than stopping. Again, I'm not here to advocate for herbal medication.
You are for orthodoxy, so you're here to do that. I like that. Like you said from the very beginning, during the answer to the other question, this is educational. And so we are not here to debate and to go into scientific theories and what works and all that. We're just trying to help the average listener to live a better life, like you said. So thank you so much. We have time for just at least one more call. So please let the call come through before Doc takes leave of us. What role should family and friends play with their loved ones in the life of a loved one who has diabetes?
Very important. With chronic diseases, support cannot be underestimated. Somebody taking medications every day can be draining. So a loved one checking up on you, how are you doing? How are you coping with the medications? Do you have enough supply? Can I buy your medications for you this month? Are you experiencing, can we talk? How is the condition? It's very helpful. It encourages the patient to comply. It encourages them to, voice out some of their feelings about it that they do not like. So yes, it's important if you have a loved one, check up on them, ask them how they are coping with their medications. Ask them, because even having to check, with checking your sugar, you have to prick yourself. It's not easy. So if you are married to someone with a condition, help them check their sugars for them, Say, okay, I'll be doing the test for you. That alone is a lot of support. So as much as you can, even if it's following them for their reviews, do that. Even if it's buying their medications, giving it to them, checking their sugars, in whatever way you can support. Ask them, have you seen your eye doctor this year? Have you done your reviews? Have you checked your basic labs this year? It helps.
It helps. Family and friends support loved ones with diabetes. It's important. So says Dr. Christiana Akpan, who is from the UGMC. The discussion today on Health and Wellness Tuesdays has been on diabetes. I hope you learned something from it. All too soon, 5 minutes to the top of the hour, we have to sign out. The 4-hour journey comes to an end here. Z in the morning from 5 to 6 to 5 to 10. It's been an exciting journey today. After a long weekend, hope you've learned a lot. And Doc, thank you so much for coming through